Barlow has a motion, so we agreed that he would move it at the end. And also, we have a little bit of business to go through, and I'll try to rush through my opening notes to give as much time to the witness as we can. Welcome, Mr. McGregor. I'm glad that you were able to join us. It's you never know what's going to happen as an MP, so glad to see you here today.
I have a firm handle on my keys today.
There you go. I'd like to outline a few rules to follow. Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. When you intervene, please make sure that your language channel is set to the language you intend to speak, not the floor. This is very important. It will reduce the number of times we need to stop because the interpretation is inaudible for our participant. It will maximize the time we spend exchanging with each other. Usually I do this test, all the witness, if you've acknowledged that, and if you understand, can you just nod so I know that that's working for you? I see a few nods, so I think we're good. Also, before speaking, wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. I will switch to French. Oops. Assurez-vous que votre micro est éteint lorsque vous ne parlez.
So make sure your microphone is turned off when you're not speaking. We are now ready to begin. I want to welcome our witnesses for today's session.
Just hang on. Am I on French here? English, okay. I'll switch it to English anyway. So today we have, for the first panel, Noggins Corner Farm 2 Limited, Mr. Andrew Bishop, owner, and also from Equestrian Canada, Richard Mongeau, Acting Director, Cheval Quebec, Christy House, Manager, Welfare and Industry, and also from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, we have Marilyn Braun-Paulin, Vice President, Western Canada and Agribusiness. So welcome to all of you. We shall start with a 7-minute opening statement. And if Noggins Corner Farm is ready, you have the floor for 7 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I don't think Andrew Bishop has arrived yet. So as the clerk had suggested, perhaps we can put him third.
Absolutely. So we'll get Equestrian Canada, Monsieur Richard Mongeau. Yes.
Yes.
Allez-y, Monsieur Mongeau, 7 minutes.
I'd like
7 minutes.
The House to be able to start, and we will change roles during the presentation, please.
That's fine. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee members for the opportunity today. So my name is Christy House, and I'm the Manager of Welfare and Industry at Equestrian Canada. With me, as you know, I have Richard Mongeau, Executive Director of Cheval Quebec. Today we are here representing tens of thousands of working horses and thousands of equine businesses currently facing severe animal welfare issues and economic devastation due to the impacts of COVID-19. I'll pass it to Richard to have some opening remarks on the impacts to the industry.
Votre sourdine est toujours, Monsieur Mongeau, est-ce que vous pouvez, votre sourdine?
Mr. Mongeau, I think you're in mute mode, but you have...
You're on mute, Mr. Mongeau, so please go ahead.
During the pandemic, agricultural sectors have continued operations as they were deemed essential. However, the majority of equine operations do not fall under the federal definition of farms and have had no choice but to suspend all business activities. Since business closures were mandated in March, equine farms have continued to bear the cost to care for their horses with no money coming in. Whether these horses are working or not, horse care costs remain the same, and an increasing number of equine operators are facing unimaginable hardships. Now, without some immediate relief, many more animals will be destroyed, and multi-generational rural Canadian businesses will close their doors for good. Equine businesses are diverse and located in every region of this country. More than 26,000 equine businesses use farmland, have purpose-built structures, and have active equines to generate revenue. Now, these businesses support regional economic development, including sport and competition, youth and adult development, wellness, therapeutic use, horse racing, and agritourism. Canadian equine operations purchase between $910 and $1.3 billion in hay, grain, and bedding each year. They spend approximately $350 million annually on veterinary and farrier services. We should be reminded that equine businesses follow virtually the same government regulations as livestock farmers, whether it be, for example, with respect to animal welfare or transportation regulations. They are all part of the agricultural equipment economy of this country. The equine businesses, the equine businesses in jeopardy are significant economic contributors to the Canadian agriculture sector and long-standing fixtures in rural Canada.
Since early March, Equestrian Canada, our national affiliates and provincial counterparts have been lobbying the federal government for help. We've been repeatedly pushed between ministries of agriculture and heritage with still no real confirmation on where we fit. Ministry of Heritage and Sport representatives have made it clear that on-farm businesses do not fall within their jurisdiction, and we understand that. Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada has spent the past weeks engaging with us and trying to find solutions with no tangible outcomes yet. We have demonstrated to the representatives within AAFC that our sector cannot meet eligibility requirements and prerequisites for AAFC and agriculture-specific programs or relief dollars. This is because very few equine operations can demonstrate farm income on their income taxes as per the definitions within Canada's Income Tax Act. Currently, there is not one emergency relief program that addresses the cost of maintaining the care and welfare of working horses. These animals have a unique set of skills that take years to develop, and they contribute to a business for many years after. We know, based on a survey we released in the end of March, that 60% of our businesses were out of resources to maintain the horses' care and welfare a month ago, and even more are affected now. Owners are now being forced to cull and euthanize their perfectly healthy and capable working horses now. This is not worst case scenario, it is already happening. To make things worse, this is the time of year when these businesses earn the bulk of their revenue, which covers them for the rest of the year. If this issue is not immediately addressed, owners will continue to offload their horses because they cannot afford to care for them and they will not be able to reopen their businesses again. We've requested from AAFC a modest amount that would have a paramount impact on the sector and the animals. This ask is based on projected number of equine farms in Canada that are at risk right now and the medium cost of care for these working horses. We estimate the cost to support at-risk working horses in Canada for 1 month to be $17.2 million. If AAFC were to provide a fund that covered 75%, we project the total cost to AAFC to be $12.9 million per month. This coverage would be a huge help to offset the challenges these farms are facing right now. Our sector has come together to support each other through this crisis, including multiple fundraisers, fostering and adoption programs, and supply sharing. We've also developed sector-specific guidelines to prepare for the reopening. In some provinces and regions are allowing equine business to resume activity, but this comes with additional costs to meet new biosecurity protocols and the new reality of COVID-19. We are continually monitoring what the current programs are and are not working for our sector and provide this feedback to government regularly. I would like to thank the government for what they have done to help Canadians through this challenging time. I'd also like to thank the members of this committee that have met previously with Equestrian Canada and our members and expressed your sympathy and a desire to help us. We are aware that COVID-19 has been devastating for many Canadian sectors, but our horses and our livelihoods are at stake.
Now, please remember, the horse has been an important contributor to the building of our economy on every level: agriculture, transportation, security, and nowadays, a very successful representative in sport, all for our country. Horses have always served Canada. Now is the time for Canada to be there for them and their caretakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mongeau and Ms. Christy House. Now, Federation of Agriculture, Canadian Federation of Independent Business for up to 7 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair, Co-Chair and the Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food for the invitation and the opportunity for CFIB to share our members' views today. On slide 2, it shows that CFIB is a nonpartisan organization with our 110,000 small and medium-sized firms, of which 7,200 are agribusiness members, and a majority of those are primary producers. Our members, we take direction from our members through surveys on an ongoing basis, and what our survey shows, the COVID pandemic has had a devastating impact on Canada's ag sector. Slide 3 is our monthly business barometer. And a index range of 65 to 70 shows an economy or a sector growing at its potential. And as you can see, the ag sector's index trails the average by about 9 points. Since the announcement of the $252 million in emergency funding on May 5th, we continue to hear heartbreaking stories from our agribusiness members across the country in many sectors about the challenges they're facing as a result of the pandemic. A lot of economic activity has been frozen during the pandemic response, but farmers aren't able to freeze their operation. They can't turn a light switch on and off. Their animals still need to be fed, cared for. They have tight windows in which they plant, harvest, get their products to market. Unfortunately, they've also had to make many tough decisions, such as having to plow down crops, destroy produce, or contemplate putting down their livestock due to reduced capacity at processing facilities or changes in the market demand. Slide 4, since the beginning of the pandemic, CFIB has been surveying our members on a weekly basis with about 12,000 responses each weekend from across every sector. And what we've done is we've presented those findings to the federal and provincial governments across the country to assist in decision making. What we have found is agriculture is not immune to the devastating impacts of this pandemic. And as you can see from slide 4, almost 70% are worried about the economic repercussions on the provincial, national, and global economy. These are extremely stressful and uncertain times for the ag sector, as the supply chain problems have cascaded right down through the sector all the way to the primary producer. You'll also notice on that chart that almost 40% of farmers are worried about debt, business cash flow, and overwhelming stress. We know that farmers are already highly leveraged. Recent Stats Canada indicates that collectively nationwide farm debt has risen about 8.7% in 2019. Slide 5 shows you temporary foreign workers and the labor shortages continue to be an issue for farmers. And we know prior to the pandemic, 60,000 temporary foreign workers came to work in Canada. Canada's agriculture, food, and fish processing industry every year. And despite this, 15,000 job vacancies were reported in the ag sector. This committee is well aware of the challenges there. And this is a long-term strategy that is needed to address those labor shortages in the future. However, we do recognize the initiatives like the Agri-Food pilot, as well, which is providing pathway to residency, as well the $1,500 per temporary foreign worker to help with isolation requirements. On this chart, you will notice, though, that 84% of those that hire temporary foreign workers say it's difficult to find Canadian workers with the skills needed to work in their agribusiness. Slide 6 really does show the impact of the carbon tax. We continue to hear about the impact of the federal carbon tax. And I should say that, in addition to the pandemic, the grain sector is really trying to recover from a difficult harvest, transportation issues, trade and market access issues. We know some farmers just a couple of weeks ago were still trying to harvest their last year's crop and incurring costly carbon taxes to dry their grain. Slide 7 really does show the impact. We did a survey that showed that the average impact to the farmer's bottom line is about $14,000 in the last year for the carbon tax. So what we also need to do is recognize that farmers have already taken many steps to protect the environment. And so one practical way to help farmers' bottom line would be to exempt natural gas, propane, fertilizer, and shipping costs. Slide 8. Just want to show you that we did survey our members following the announcement a couple of weeks ago, and we understand the enormous challenges in designing support programs and getting them out quickly, and we appreciate the government's willingness to improve emergency programs like SEBA, like the wage subsidy program. But unfortunately, what we're finding is that even with the funding is a good step, these survey results show that only 29% of farmers say that it'll be helpful. And in public comments, the federal government has said that these measures are an initial investment, and if we do need to, they'll do more. And so the time is now to do more. Slide 9 really does show just what one of our members says it well. Investing in our food industry has never been more important than now. We cannot rely on other countries to feed us. I did send a letter and a report a few weeks ago to the committee that provided hundreds of comments from farmers about what the challenges they're facing, but also what measures the government needs to look at to address those challenges. Finally, on slide 10, it's very clear from the hundreds of comments from farmers across the country that the ag sector is not immune to the many short-term business challenges and the long-lasting effects of COVID-19. The livestock sector alone has seen mounting costs and losses in the past several weeks. The Canadian Cattlemen's Association estimates that the industry will lose about $500 million by the end of June, and the Canadian Pork Council also gives an estimate of losses north of $600 million. So we've outlined some very specific recommendations that we do need additional emergency funding. These are unprecedented times, and certainly we need to look at protecting the Canadian food supply. We need to improve our business risk management programs to make them timely, responsive, effective, and transparent. Restoring Agri-Stability's reference margin to 85% would be a start. We have another recommendations with respect to reducing red tape in interprovincial trade, as well as our common sense recommendation on the carbon tax. But we also
Thank you,
cannot...
Ms. Paulin. Thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Yeah,
has Noggin's farm been able to connect? Do we know? I don't think so, eh?
No, Mr. Chair.
So
what's the status, Mr. Clerk, in terms of what's going on? Have you had any update from the IT?
Well, they are currently looking into trying maybe to get his testimony through phone, but even then it's far from a secure option right now. Because, for instance, even if it's a cell phone number, the sound could be still very bad, and it would be disruptive for the meeting, the proceeding. So that's the status of it right now.
From a security perspective, there wouldn't be a problem, would there, in terms of this is a public meeting? No.
There's no security issue. I'm talking about sound quality issues, for instance. Really.
So what we'll do, we'll start with the question round, and we'll, if they should come in, we'll let them do their statement if we can do it before the end, and we'll see how the rest of the timing goes. So we'll start with the question round, and we'll start with the 6 minutes to the Conservative, Mr. Barlow, up to 6 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Barlow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the testimony of all of our witnesses here today. Ms. Host, I would like to start with you, and I appreciate your impassioned presentation here with the crisis within the equine industry. And I'm just wondering if you could, it wasn't in your testimony, but I believe in some of the letters that you've sent, the equine industry is asking for an exemption to Section 30, I believe, of the Income Tax Act. Is that correct? And can you explain how that would benefit the equine industry?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for the question. So within how income tax and within the farming portion of the income tax and how farming income is defined, the description is limited to maintaining racehorses, and it specifically exempts most other activities for on-farm equine businesses. It specifically mentions certain disciplines versus another, and riding schools. So because of that, it's very systemic in terms of even demonstrating farm income to access farm registration numbers. You have to be able to demonstrate a minimum number on your income tax return, and any facility that's not breeding or maintaining racehorses cannot demonstrate that, and is therefore can't access certain farm-specific programs. Farm registration numbers and demonstrating a minimum number of farm income are prerequisites to pretty much all agriculture and AFC specific programs, including the business risk management programs, but even so much as accessing on-farm cost share programs through the CAP programs. So we have been looking to address this issue. It's a long-standing issue, but in our conversations with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada over the coming weeks, it's been an issue for even if they were to adapt some of the already pre-existing AAFC programs. We know through our survey that only 35% of our members would be able to access it because they have access to farm registration numbers.
Great, thanks. So have you had a response at all from, say, finance on a willingness to look at this as a potential tool to resolve some of the issues you've been facing? Have you had a response from finance on this at all?
We have not had a response from finance on this at all. We have had expression from the representatives we've been working with in Madame Bibeau's office to support us on that endeavor. We know it's not going to be an overnight endeavor, but we are looking to continue to move that conversation forward, and it would be both a short-term help and a long-term help.
Thanks, Ms. House. And I know, certainly for many of us, we have, stock contractors, show jumping, horse facilities in our ridings who are in a desperate situation. And it really comes around to, like, as you said, covering the costs of feed, maintaining their animals. And maybe this is a question for you, Ms. House, and for Ms. Braun-Poland on CFIB. I know there's a lot of discussion around the business risk management program, but say agri-stability, for example, the payouts for agri-stability were never designed for a pandemic. Even if you were to enroll by the July 3rd deadline, you may not see a payment for up to 2 years. That does not address your immediate situation. Am I correct? You're needing something, immediately.
Yeah, I think we've received a lot of testimonials from our members. We've reached out to them on a weekly basis to find out what's going on, how current programs are working. The most common theme is they are seeing between 60 and 100% reduction in their income, most of which have been running at a deficit since this began. Our industry has slim margins to begin with. So bearing the ongoing costs with now, additional costs in terms of getting set to reopen, they're running at a deficit. So we need something that is reactive as quickly as possible.
Yeah, certainly for my area of the world, no rodeos, no chuck wagon races, no show jumping events, where a lot of these businesses earn their money through the summer. So it's very, very difficult time, and I appreciate you taking the opportunity to speak with us on this. Now to CFIB. I find it interesting that one of your proposals is exempting the carbon tax. What has been the response from your members to not only not have an exemption of the carbon tax for agriculture, to see that carbon tax increased by 50% on April 1st? What has the impact been on your members?
Well, thanks for the question. You're correct. April 1st saw a 50% increase during a pandemic of a tax. When farmers can actually least afford it. It's an ineffective tax. It punishes farmers with significant costs, just making them less, profitable and competitive on the world stage. I talked to farmers just a couple of weeks ago that were taking off their 2019 harvest. So if they had to, if it was damp, they had to dry it, but also, you look at the just the inability of them to pass that on. They're price takers, and they need to, so they just find it throughout the whole supply chain as well, the cost of that carbon tax. We did some research. I know Minister Bibeau was looking for some data, and so we did some research, and it was very compelling. What we found is that 82% of our members were saying that it's a negative impact, and it is also very clear that farmers care about the environment. They're stewards of the environment, but they're not being recognized for the work that they're doing to protect the environment. And instead, they're being punished. And so I do think a common sense approach would be to at least delay increases, postpone the carbon tax at a time when they can least afford it. And we all know that the rebates. We know that residents paid 50%. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Sorry, we're out of time. And now we'll go to Mr. Blois for up to 6.
Mr. Chair, I do see that Mr. Bishop has arrived.
Yeah.
Maybe perhaps we allow him 5 minutes or something.
Okay, Mr. Bishop, go ahead for your opening statement, up to 7 minutes. Go ahead. You need to turn your mic on, off mute, I guess, Mr. Okay, you're good.
We're all set now? Yes, very quickly. Nogget's Corner Farms is situated in the Annapolis Valley. It's a 6th-generation family-owned Nova Scotia company. We grow fruit and vegetables.
Nous avons plusieurs hectares, centaines d'hectares de vergers, la plupart des pommes, des pêches, des poires, des prunes, des framboises et des cerises douces. Nous avons aussi 3000 balles de foin en stockage et nous avons aussi de l'emballage pour 1200 wagons. Nous avions aussi un kiosque au détail sur place qui nous permet d'entreposer des fruits à l'année longue dans un milieu contrôlé environnementalement, température, etc. Nous avions aussi une offre de divertissement apprentissage. Sur notre ferme, les familles peuvent nous visiter. C'est l'agrotourisme, en effet. Il nous aide aussi à faire...
Yes, Mr. McGregor.
I'm sorry, but I'm on the English channel. I'm getting French overlapping his English testimony for some reason.
The interpreter's at fault here and apologizes. Thank you. We lost it entirely. It was all on the English, and now... Okay, the problem is already solved, sir.
It's good. Let's try it again. Ça marche? Okay, try it again, Mr. Bishop. Go ahead.
All right, I'll continue on before I lift off. We market our products through two primary channels: wholesale,
I had to
marketing,
switch myself.
Distribution channels through major and minor grocery chains. Account for about 75% of our sales. And a retail operation we have through our farm markets and our farmers markets in Nova Scotia. That makes up the remaining 25%. Geographically, we sell, of course, to Atlantic Canada, to Ontario wholesale clients, and to a major U.S. distributor. We employ over 90 full-time and part-time personnel through the year to staff our processing, warehousing, and distribution operations. Gross sales, just to give you an idea, range in the 6.5 to 7.5 million. Over the last couple of years, we've experienced several economic threatening events to us. In 2018, a devastating late frost in our valley, something we've never seen before. In 2019, we had a very cold, wet spring with stress on our trees. Which are already in shock from our 2018 frost. In September, Hurricane Dorian took 30 to 40% of our crop. That's late 2019. It took 30 to 40% of our crop off the trees, and also left a lot of our crop damaged on the trees. I will comment that I'm not here to complain today, but just give you a feel of our situation on our farm and other farms in our area. We look at things from a positive sense and try to work with our adverse conditions. An example of that would be our hurricane losses we incurred. We found a way to make up some of that loss through our vertically integrated operation by making cider out of the windfall apples. We call this, and I quote, Hurricane. It was bottled. It was put in a can, not in a bottle, and it became an instant success because our customers were all affected in the Halifax and the metro regions by this hurricane, which they've lost power for over a week, and it just out of sympathy, we had tremendous success out of a terrible, devastating hurricane to our trees. Moving forward very quickly to 2020, COVID arrived, of course, as we all know, in March. I'm just going to state very, very quickly some of the ongoing things that are happening or what's happened. And as a result of COVID, we suddenly lost several of our employees, especially on the retail side, to various reasons, mostly fear of catching it, contact with customers, and so on. We've had to cut our hours of operation to cope. 3 of our farm markets we attend all closed down, which is fairly significant for us. We took that sad scenario and we moved quickly to online sales, and we were able to capture some of that business through the future. We captured some of that business. However, the future of our farm markets is still up in the air, and we're not sure what this will mean as we move forward into our busy season, which is going to start. It's starting now. It's going to ramp up in August and full swing, of course, in September and October. The online sales, of course, required a different skill set, and we were able to. We had to hire several more people to be able to cope with the new challenges of our business. Along with all that happening, of course, we had to keep up with all the current regulations, the new things happening, making sure we protect our employees, making huge changes to our processing or our packing line to be able to keep distance and to keep some kind of flow. It has proved from a management point very stressful and very very time consuming. I guess we've gone through that, and now we are. I will add, we were able to get our seasonal workers in, and I thank the government very much for stepping up and helping us in various ways to get them here. Certainly, they came in a month late, but in our business, our tree fruit business, the trees were moving along as the season progressed. We missed lots of events as far as what we needed to do in our orchards. But
Mr. Bishop, I'm going to have to. The time is up, but you'll have a chance to answer questions. So we'll move on.
Okay. Thank you,
Mr. Blois. You have up to 6 minutes for your question. Go ahead, Mr. Blois.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Bishop. Of course, Andrew, it's great to see you. You gave me a little bit of scare that we weren't going to get you on here, and we'll have to keep working on rural internet down our way, won't we?
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you to all the witnesses for their testimony. I want to start. You mentioned temporary farm workers, and I know, Andrew, that you and your family treat your temporary farm workers basically as an extension of your family. Can you express to this committee how important it is to have those workers and how important the additional funding from the government was to help with those additional costs you mentioned?
They're not really farm workers. They're skilled. And we get our workers from Jamaica. They're skilled Jamaican farmers. They have a skill set. Some of them have been here to 14 to 16 years. They know a farm as well or better than I do. So it's very, very important. It's very important that they're here because they also add to our ability to hire extra local help. We witnessed, of course, isolation and extra costs, and we're thankful for the money that and the support the government's given us so far.
I want to ask you about hiring locals, because you mentioned there was some attrition from your workforce because of workers concerned about the resulting COVID-19. Can you just quickly provide an update on how you were able to get those local workers and how they're functioning?
They're functioning very well, of course. There's challenges. We suddenly lost key people As I mentioned, we were able to replace them. Training in the COVID environment was very much a challenge. But in net, when we changed some of our sales techniques, in net, we added another 6 employees to our workforce, local.
Perfect. You mentioned, and we know this in Nova Scotia to be true, about the challenges around the FOST and Dorian and things of those nature. We are studying business risk management. We were before. This is obviously COVID-related panel, but it goes hand in hand with business risk management. We have a thing called an Olympic average, which helps set the reference margin limits. Can you explain why in Nova Scotia that might be a little lower than possible and how this is impacting the ability for producers to perhaps benefit from programs like AgriStability?
Well, for me and other farmers, I'm diverse in my operation. So when I have I do well on one crop and maybe poor on another crop, our change is not as significant. It has an effect. We still have all those costs, and we need to work on something that's going to be a little more forgiving for a diverse operation.
No, that's perfect. And so what I'm understanding then is the higher we can get the reference margin, the more likely more likely farmers like yourself that are very diversified in nature might be able to take advantage and actually benefit from these programs.
That's correct. In all the years that we've always participated in AgriStability, and we've never been able to make a claim through our day-to-day activities or yearly activities in how we how we address our business.
Now, Andrew, I wasn't around in 2013. It would have been my predecessor, Scott Bryson, of course, but this program was cut from 85% reference margin down to 70 under the former government. Do you have any idea, from the community as to why that might have happened? Do you remember the recollection or the purpose at the time?
At the time, I don't remember all the discussions, but again, we're a diverse operation in our crops, and I think the monologue crops, maybe grain farmers and the like, had some very good years, and I think that probably there was more to do with our Western counterparts, the changes in the program.
I want to talk to you about after COVID-19 in terms of the importance of course, supporting our regional agricultural centers. You've had some experience with the Kentville Research Station and the important work that it does. Can you speak? You've been in farming almost 50 years, Andrew. Can you speak to how important that institution is and perhaps any enhancements you'd like to see in those regional research centers?
To my mind, the regional research centers are very, very important to our regional agriculture, especially in tree fruits. If we have issues, we can address them quickly. I've seen over, and it's up to 50 years, so 50 years and over. I maybe not seen my gray hair, but we've seen a loss in expertise that has been very valuable to us, and we can't. There's nothing I think that can replace that local content as far as research is concerned.
Last thing I want to ask you, Andrew, of course, you mentioned you have a mixture of wholesale business and also retail. There'll be many people across Nova Scotia that have traveled down to pick apples or pumpkins in the autumn and things like that. Can you talk to how COVID-19 has actually spurred more local interest in food and people wanting to buy local?
Yes, I think that there's a whole new awareness out there with our consumers on the importance of their food security. The events that we read about and hear about and actually are happening are making people think a lot about that, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it at our local retail shops. There's a big spike in sales, which is a good thing. We don't sell as many of our own products, but we do offer our neighbors' products as well to round out a good shopping experience for our customers.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you.
Glad you could join us. And Mr. Blois, thank you. Et maintenant, Monsieur.
And now, Mr. Perron, you have 6 minutes. Yes, thank you very much to the witnesses. I'll share my time with Mr. Champoux. I'd like to address myself to Canada, the horse people. You indicated that there would be some interprovincial improvements. What's the nature of your proposals on that? Equestrian Canada?
Comes from the provincial representation.
Bonjour, Monsieur Perron.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Perron, but unfortunately I missed a part of that question. Could you repeat it, please? Yes, I only wanted to know what's your proposal. In your presentation earlier, you spoke of interprovincial trade or commerce, if you will, and you didn't quite have enough time to finish your thought on that. So what would you say? I think it was the other speaker, the other witness that talked about interprovincial trade. But if you give me the opportunity, I sure will discuss some difficulties that we're going through in various jurisdictions. 20 seconds. Operators in all provinces, especially Quebec, we find ourselves in a situation where smaller enterprises, equine situations, they have to make very drastic choices. They either sell their horses, which is what their life, that's how they make a living, or many are going off to the slaughterhouse. Not only does it deprive them of further revenues, but it takes a while to replace a horse and become a profitable asset to the business. Well, it's a very dramatic situation. In your presentation, you said only 29% of your members consider that the support measures offered by the government are efficient. That's less than a third. And it would have to be higher than that. And of course, in all these announcements made by the government, they say more is forthcoming, more is forthcoming. What do you need specifically, and how would you play it? Yes, well, there's always ways to do more. And I believe that the need that we have is to immediate access to capital, immediate. We need it now. More than 20%, 60% rather, responding to our survey are already cash shy right now. They can't keep their businesses afloat. We're witnessing horses that are going off to slaughter, and the delays that we have in this program could take a few months before we can get to some concrete result. So speed is important. We have to get it up to speed. Secondly, access for these entrepreneurs to these government programs. Ms. House was saying earlier that the procedures right now are based on a duly registered agricultural enterprise. And are the activities considered to be agricultural revenue? So this is a major point. Many of the activities then, or these equestrian enterprises, they live on a farm, they operate horses, but they fall between definitions, as it were. We need to simplify the rules or perhaps make them a little bit more flexible so that they can have access to immediate assistance. So this is one more witness who comes to tell this committee that the current program, the assistance of support, etc., is not really working all that efficiently, and there are improvements to be made right away. Yes, right away, but flexibility. Discussions with Madame Bibot and her officials have tried to make it as accessible as possible, but we have to go from good statements to acting on it. Mr. Champoux, well, while that you're warmed up, I'll keep up with the questions, but I'll change tracks a little bit. I'm talking about courses of equestrian skills, of racetracks perhaps, and competitions or show competitions. Yes, training and competitions are supposedly going to be released next week, all the while being in full respect to the regulations for health and safety. What do you think the challenges will be? Because, as you say, we have to obey the various new rules on safety because of the COVID-19. It might make your situation a bit more problematic. You're quite right. If we talk about training, for example, or courses, as in all situations right now in the pandemic, the number of clients or participants that can participate in a course will be reduced because of distancing. And the cost, of course, are fixed. The overhead costs to offer the course are fixed. All the infrastructure is fixed costs. Costs the same thing to have the number of horses, etc., and there will be supplementary employees that have to be hired to offer the same amount of service, but to fewer people. In the first few months, and we won't be operating necessarily at a dead loss, but we won't be making a penny of profit. As for competitions, it will be a very similar situation. We're relatively advanced in adopting to and adapting to the processes and protocols with the restrictions that we know what they are, and we agree with them, of course. But they won't be profitable for at least a couple of months or more. So more assistance would be welcome. Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Mongeau, thank you. Mr. Champeau, Alistair McGregor for 6 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for contributing to our study on just how COVID-19 has impacted agriculture and agri-food. We really appreciate your time today. I'll start with the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. I note the section that you gave in your presentation regarding the carbon tax, and this has certainly been a topic which has occupied the committee's attention for a couple of years now. However, I'm interested in getting beyond the carbon tax conversation, and I'd like to hear some of your feedback on, have any of your members, especially in agriculture and agri-food, given you any feedback in particular about some of the innovative things that farmers are doing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from their work? And, as we move into the recovery phase, maybe you can illustrate some of those and maybe ways in which the federal government can help encourage those new innovations without just getting bogged down in the conversation that we're having about the carbon tax.
Well, thank you for that. And, I think the important part is recognizing, as you say, what farmers are already doing. They're great stewards of the land. We actually did a report back in February, sent it to the minister about not only the impact, but already what farmers are doing and how government could actually encourage them even to do more. But I do think when we're on a competitive stage, a competitive world stage, and our competitors are not looking at these types of increases, it does make us less competitive. And so when you look at the thousands of dollars on average, $14,000 that farmers paid in carbon tax in the last year, certainly there are better ways to take care of the environment than just a tax that's going to continue to increase every year.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in my own province of British Columbia, we're exempt from the federal pricing scheme because we have our own system. Propane is exempt from the motor fuel tax, not yet the carbon tax provincially, but that's certainly something that can be looked at. And I think if it's quite demonstrable that a propane or liquefied natural gas is being used exclusively for farming operations, I think it's a worthwhile thing to look at, especially as I think we're helping farmers through this transition period. I just wanted to move on. You've talked a little bit about the federal benefits that have been announced, but I want to drill down a little bit more about some of the financial help that's been put out there to help businesses obtain personal protective equipment, to reorganize their workspaces. Also, the amount of funding that's been given to make temporary foreign workers comply with the Quarantine Act and so on. Can you give us some feedback on how those specific financial measures are working or are not working? Or if there's room for improvement, i.e., is more money needed for those specific things?
Well, certainly in my comments, thanks for the question. Certainly in my comments, we did talk about, there are enormous challenges to designing support programs and getting them out quickly. And so we have appreciated the government's willingness to change and improve certain programs like CEBA, like the wage subsidy. But to your point, with the temporary foreign worker issue and the ongoing labor shortages, shortly after that announcement was made, with respect to the $1,500 for for helping them with isolation requirements, a strong majority of our members support that. 73% support that. I think the other part, though, is that it's interesting that 84% of our members say it's going to be difficult to find Canadians with the skills needed to work in their agribusiness, and these are skilled workers. When you look at planting quickly, harvesting quickly. If the weather's against you, you've got to get your product in a quick and efficient way. But so we have recognized the work, the hard work that's been to ensure those temporary foreign workers can come during the critical planting season and helping farmers offset the cost of quarantine workers. The 3-year Agri-Food pilot, that's really innovative, and that's going to fill ongoing labor needs. But what I like most about it, it's going to provide a pathway to permanent residency, which we have always called for and advocated for a number of years. So I think the work done there has been very good. But let's not forget, we have thousands of jobs going vacant. And we will have many in the horticulture, vegetable sectors that are going to need workers sooner rather than later. And we still don't have all that we need. Thank you.
And I'll just go one last question in your final slide on your list of recommendations, again, just on the theme of, how we're going to get the recovery up and going. You mentioned the interprovincial trade barriers. Can you maybe just expand on that? Because that's certainly a topic that's come up before Parliament, and it's certainly something the federal government can act upon. So I'd like to hear you expand a bit more on that, just so our committee can be informed to make the appropriate recommendations.
Well, thank you for that question. Yeah, we've talked a lot about, unnecessary red tape. We understand there's regulations to protect health and safety in the environment, but when there's unnecessary red tape and barriers, and specifically interprovincial trade with agri-food products, when you look at addressing the duplication, federal, provincial regulations, if meat is safe enough to eat in one province, it should be safe enough to transport it to another province. Now, I know there's been some temporary measures there.
Thank you, Ms. Braun Pallon. Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for you. And I mean, for the whole panel, we're done with this first hour. It's never long enough. It's a very interesting conversation and testimony. So really appreciate all of you from Noggin's Corner Farm. Glad you could make it, Mr. Bishop, from Equestrian Canada, Richard Mongeau, Christy House. Really happy to have you on board. And also the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, of course, Ms. Braun Pallon. So thank you so much. We will take 5 minutes to change the set, and we'll be back. So set your clocks. We will now suspend the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, TV crew, please interrupt the proceedings on PowerView, please, because we are currently suspended.
consultant marketing, maraîcher LL Incorporé, Catherine Lefebvre, vice-présidente.
Catherine Lefebvre, and Ted Hutton Farms, Ted Hutton, the owner. So, UPA, Madame Saint-Georges, you have 7 minutes to make your presentation, and the floor is yours, madam. Everyone hear me very well? Yes? Well, good day, everyone. You've introduced me, Madame Saint-Georges. I'm with the Union des Producteurs Agricoles. I'm also chair of a table for the development of local markets that we established in June 2019. Mr. Groslo, who is also the chair of that table, consultation table, 30 or so organizations to diversify local markets. In fact, I'll give you a few facts. I think you received my speaking notes. In 2016, we succeeded for the first time to get a question on direct sales included in the survey, in the census. These are very preliminary data, of course, 2016. We're going to look for fuller statistics in future. But for that census, 19% of farms in Quebec made direct sales. Not, a direct sale is very good in any case. And there's others that mixed farming, dairy plus, maple syrup, for example, and there's public markets and the local community markets. These statistics, these markets, we don't know what the actual acreage is or the specific employment rankings, but we know that there's a lot of temporary seasonal workers involved, and generally they put in more hours to operate their enterprise than a conventional industrial type farm. And generally they have to work off farm to make the thing reliable. 7% of Quebec's cropland is operated in direct sales. So there we do have an acreage. It's approximately 130,000 hectares. Now, all of this data is for the entirety of Quebec, the whole province. So MAPAP, which is the Ministry of Agriculture, they look at those traditional markets that sell to restaurants, institutions, etc., and they think it's about $800 million in sales for that last year. And when we talk about a local market and marketing, we're talking about a closer relationship between the consumer and the producer. It can be a relationship which is closer in the sense of geography. They're in the same administrative unit, 150K, generally speaking, between the final consumer and the producer, or the number of middlemen involved. It's more direct. So we tried to do this consultation table to see what the challenges that they target and what their needs are. In the short term, their insecurity, loss of markets, etc., because of COVID-19, flowers, ornamental plants, etc. Well, that's not considered an essential service because it's not food, and there was some insecurity there. So pick your own farms in Quebec. That, of course, took a bad hit because, of course, distancing, etc., and people are not supposed to be out and about. We don't know if consumers will eventually, when restrictions loosen, begin to come back to that. Closures of restaurants, bars, bistros. Some public markets will never open again. They've decided not to open up the farmers' market as we have in various cities. And this will be pretty hard, particularly on the new farmers, those who are just starting up. Or those Sunday morning markets. People make a weekend event of it, and they go out and travel about. Local tourism. Agri-tourism, well, you're not allowed to have tastings of anything. There are no festivals, which is a source of income for these businesses as well. Access to labor. It's the same as anywhere in agriculture. People are less available. Plus, temporary foreign workers. Just the arrival in Canada now with a quarantine period, etc., will have an impact. And as far as cash flow goes, you still have to pay your suppliers for your inputs. Others are telling us that they won't be able to maintain this kind of expenditures without any income for very much longer. Now, there's a lot of other detail I could give you, but generally speaking, consumers are quite enthusiastic. They're starting to respond, and I think we should strike while the iron's hot. Gourmets, Canadians are going to spend more time in Canada. Canadians are going to be in Canada this year to be tourists, so we can target that market. And, of course, online sales, which, of course, by necessity, which the mother of invention, we've had good luck with that. As for the demand, what we need, we should need some assistance to establish and sort of anchor these markets, whether it's online marketing or sales. Some regions don't even have broadband, particularly in isolated areas, so that's a big problem. As for localized slaughterhouses or packing plants, that has to be coordinated. Reduction of barriers to interprovincial sales, for example. Ontario, Quebec, we're cheek by jowl, so the standards are not necessarily the same on the sales of agricultural product. The repurchase of agricultural products by food banks, that has been announced. There is apparently a support program for that. On the 2nd June, we appeared before the Senate Committee on Agriculture, BRM, Business Risk Management, how we could adapt this better to our producers and this sector. The impact of COVID, of course, there's short-term and long-term. Short-term, we know what they are. The long-term, we have yet to see how that will develop over time. Because we don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to land, where the chips may fall. And that's it. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Madame Saint-Georges. Now we'll go to Maraîcher LNL, Ms. Lefebvre. Ms. Lefebvre, you have 6 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, 7 minutes. Yes, you hear me well? Loud and clear. Let me introduce myself. My name is Catherine Lefebvre, Vice President of Ferme Les Marchères LNL, market garden production, greenhouse production of plants for other markets, and particularly sugar beets. I'd like to deal, first of all, with labor issues. We're a great concern. It's a great concern. We're a medium-sized farm. We hire about 20 workers, including 12 foreign workers. We currently have received only 7 from abroad. And we're not sure whether when the others will be able to arrive, considering it takes to process the files. We're still missing 7 employees to make a full team. The workers who are supposed to arrive in June are the ones that we are eagerly awaiting by our producers to ensure harvests. And if I'm to see the flow, we see that close to 60% of the workers have arrived. Looking around our area, we consider ourselves very lucky because we have hours, or almost. The programs announced today encourage Canadians not to work or to limit their hours to 25 hours a week. A big hurdle for us. The training of each of our employees is costly. We need equipment for the PPE. And it takes up to 1 or 2 Quebec workers to replace a foreign worker because of his efficiency and also the endurance and his skills to work 10 to 12 hours a day. After a full day of work on a farm, at the end of a week, they often sort of throw up their arms and they're looking for something else. They walk away. We have to start all over again with a new employee. Protective measures must be much more strict with our Quebec workers because the deconfinement. The cost of these measures, including the social distancing, 2 meters, will have a direct impact on our yields and on our profits. No program is adapted to our employees, so we have to take the initiative and increase their salaries if we want to induce them to stay. With the outbreak of the pandemic in mid-March, we were still packing beets for a 2019 crop. Our work schedule at this time of year is 35, 40 hours a week. So when we heard the news of the CERB, we had to realize we have to do something to motivate everybody to come back to work. So we're sitting peacefully at home with their families. We have to round out their pay. We're offering $500 a week extra. People will have to pay taxes on that, but hey, at least it's a solution which will motivate our troops. And the one that we found, much better than just sitting at home and being bored, waiting to minimize their risks of COVID. We have to reward those who get up every day of the week and go and support their families and use all the programs that are available. We were able to hire 3 students, 14 years of age, however, so they can't come and do the manual work of an adult. And, we don't want to be accused of child labor, but they can't do as much work. So perhaps we could change their working age. At 13, 14 years of age, someone is capable of doing a bit of weeding or crop maintenance. Those who want to work should be able to work, regardless of their age. The 75% program announced doesn't apply to us. Production period or the drop in income will not be felt until later in our harvest. We're always in a sort of staggered timeline, so the costs related to COVID are still enormous. We'll also have to adapt quickly to counter the costs, the extra costs for retaining our local workforce and the quarantine of the foreign workers. There's also the program offering $1,500 per foreign worker, which was announced to cover the quarantine costs. This was changed recently anyway, and it's only the costs that are going to be billed by a third-party company or net salary of our foreign workers. Staff time, and what we have to pay for groceries, taking their temperatures, the extra need of the workers, the government deductions, renovations to the housing, all this has to meet new standards, and this will cost more. Aside from all the stresses we're going through ordinarily with Mother Nature, the tough world of markets and everything else, we still have a thorn in our side at this time, the COVID pandemic and potential of contamination on the farm. If they're contaminated, will we have to quarantine for 14 days? Can I continue to deliver transplants for other vegetable growers? I'm going to imperil their harvest as well. It's a domino effect, both for the industry and ourselves. We've listened to the possibilities. We've tried to obey all the regulations, but we're still living with a great manpower shortage. And business management risk in this regard is very difficult. Now, what about the programs that are supposed to be in place to give us some respite from the turmoil we're going through? We've recently learned that we won't have any crop insurance to cover labor shortages. In fact, what about the Agri-Stability Plan? Will it be changed or modified? A request has been made by the market gardening sector for insurance to be triggered at 90% instead of the usual 70%, and for the payment to be triggered at 85% of the difference between the reference margin and the actual 2020 margin. No clear signals have been received yet, so there's a constant request for us to withdraw our money from agri-investment accounts. If we do that, when will we see our money coming back to invest in our businesses? These accounts are meant to invest in business, not bail them out. If we use all this money, we'll see our businesses decline even more quickly or go down the drain when it comes time to invest a lot of money in new equipment. The equipment needed to improve our packaging plants or our harvesting equipment is very expensive. That's why we have to keep some financial buffer in the agri-investments for the day it comes, and we need to invest perhaps hundreds of thousands of dollars to change equipment. So we have to leave that alone, not try to cover the shortfalls called the pandemic. The accumulated sums are the accumulated profits of our business, and we have to borrow at interest rates to keep going. And when we have amounts to pay,
Madame Lefebvre.
Madame Lefebvre, we have to interrupt you at this point. Unfortunately, you were going along very well, and technical question, Mr. Chairman. Technical point of order. Yes. I just mentioned to the technical team that while the Francophones were speaking, we could hear the interpretation in the background. I didn't want to interrupt the witness, but I just wanted to point it out to you that the interpretation was bleeding through somehow. Okay, we've heard, and we'll try that again. And if you still have a problem, Mr. Perron, let us know. Mr. Hutton, the floor is yours.
Hello. I would like to begin by thanking the chair and the committee just to have this opportunity to speak. I and my wife, we own a small mixed fruit and vegetable operation in Nova Scotia. I've been farming a little over 3 decades now. We grow a mix of tree fruit and some berries, as well as many different types of vegetables. And the bulk of our sales go to 2 separate public farmers markets within the province. And that has been the bulk of my business for my entire life. When COVID hit a couple months ago, both of the farmers markets closed, and it essentially I had to pivot and completely change my business model. So what I did is I had a small community-supported agricultural online sales business, and I expanded that business substantially and moved the bulk of my business into online sales. The one thing we did notice was a massive increase in demand. It's been challenging, but we have been able to move all of our products, and it has been, although difficult, it has been, generally speaking, okay, up until now at least. We have not yet entered the full season. It's only June. As we get into more production, we'll have to see what happens. But as it stands now, by pivoting the business and going to an online sales model, we essentially changed how we sell the products that we grow.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Just hang on here. Okay. So now we'll go to our question round, and for up to 6 minutes. Laissez-moi parler en français. Alors, pour 6 minutes, Monsieur Lehoux, allez-y.
6 minutes, Mr. Lehoux. Go to it. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the witnesses for being with us today. 2 quick questions for Madame Saint-Georges and for Madame Lefebvre as well. In the current context, the interpreter is on the English channel right now. You, Mr. Lehoux, you're on the French channel? Yes. Would you like to try again? Mr. Perron? Yes, but we don't have the camera. We don't have the video of Mr. Lehoux. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Are you shy? I'm not camera shy. I just pressed on 2 buttons at the same time. Try again, Mr. Lehoux, and we'll let us know if we still get complaints. My question was for Madame Saint-Georges and for Madame Lefebvre. Mr. Blois made a mention of internet, and she made a mention of internet, and so Mr. Ellis is still getting some feedback of some sort. Apparently, there is some crossover or some issue there. We're going to have a check with our technical people, please. We're doing that currently. Well, it was working well before, was it not? We've stopped the clock on you, Mr. Leroux. Thank you very much. It's weird. It happens to me every Friday. And it's only to me it happens.
Donc, Monsieur Leroux.
Okay, Mr. Leroux. You are on French. I am speaking on the French channel, correct. Small favor to ask you, sir. Could you put it on the French channel just for a moment and put it back onto the French just to see if the magic works?
Je viens de revenir.
Okay, I'm back on the French channel. Is this still a problem, Mr. Ellis? Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Ellis. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, well, whatever it was, it seems to be gone. Thank you. My question is addressed to Madame Lefebvre. We talked about the rural internet or broadband. And if I understand from Mr. Blewis, this seems to be a situation that was fairly unique. But there are regions in Canada, in Quebec, everywhere, and out of metropolitan areas, that there are communications. So could you tell us a little bit more about some of these problems, Madame Saint-Georges? Yes, well, high-speed internet is not available throughout Quebec. And when we deal with our federations, some of our producers cannot, in fact, participate even in Zoom meetings. There's not enough bandwidth. So you imagine where you're trying to do high-level sale, high-intensity sales, delivery, etc. Okay, Madame Lefebvre, the internet in Montérégie, is it working well? Well, yes, but I'm not very far away from the village, as it were. So there's a cell tower. But if we get away, the more we wander away from Montreal, the more difficult it becomes. And there's a lot of last miles still in existence, right? Yes. I'd like to continue with you, Madame Lefebvre. Difficulties in recruiting temporary foreign workers. I heard your comments about this $1,500 to cover the costs of integration during COVID times. But you have extra money to spend on top of that. Oh, yes. What's the cost involved in the quarantine is not really covered by that because to get that $1,500, we have to provide supporting evidence, as it were. Okay, well, we need to make some changes to that. Agri-investment, I appreciated your comments. I think it is very, very significant. You're literally, without pun intended, in the field. And when you want access to these programs, the current formula is just not working for you for agri-investment. Agri-invest. Well, Agri-invest should be to invest in, reinvest into farm operation. We can't take it like a piggy bank and you just take out your operational expenses. And so you need a specific program to cover a certain crisis or extreme kind of situation. Yes, yes. Otherwise, it's catastrophic from an economic point of view. Thank you very much, Madame Lefebvre. Madame Saint-Georges. The support programs being offered for local markets. Can you, well, I tried to give you what it might be, what it might resemble, particularly in the times of the pandemic. In Quebec, for example, access to public markets, a public farmers market, so-called, there's some assistance there. We don't know if there was going to be open or not. Could we have sort of a drive-in type of situation? But these programs are tentative, experimental, but they could be put into place pretty quickly, and that would help us in the case of a crisis such as a pandemic. that type of initiative might be able to be financed under the aegis of these programs. It happens in Quebec. It could happen under the federal regime as well, don't you think? Yes, I believe so. This type of initiative, this type of assistance or support or relief would be worthwhile for agriculture everywhere in Canada. Yes, there's no, for the small farm operator, we don't have economies of scale. We need all the revenues we can get in order just to carry on without necessarily expanding. Did you notice any other specifics related to COVID? I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime, we hope, but there might be other pandemics or other crises in future. Well, the obstacles to interprovincial trade for, alcohol sales, for example, there's a sort of obstacles there. Certain standards for processing meats, not only meats, but meats in particular. And goods should be easily crossing the border, especially when you live on the border. Thank you, Madame Saint-Georges. Madame Lefebvre, I'm coming back to you. You bypass CERB altogether because it doesn't seem to apply. So you have revenue losses this year. You'll only know about it later because you're in sort of staggered between one season and the next. You put in your inputs and your incomes are very far apart. Yes, without a doubt. We have to adapt a labor program, labor support. We have everyday labor that people are here with us all year long, and they need to help us, so this is good. But right now, it's only the low-paid labor that will help. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lehoux, Madame Lefebvre, Madame Saint-Georges.
Cody, you have up to 6 minutes. Go ahead, Cody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses. I do want to say it's refreshing to hear some of our local producers and their perspectives on these issues. So thanks again to all the witnesses. My questions will be directed to Mr. Hutton. Ted, it's great to see you. We had Andrew Bishop on earlier for the first panel. And I guess my first question, you mentioned the fact that you supply produce to the farmers markets. I believe you also provide supplies to restaurants and things like that. You mentioned how you've pivoted your business to online. Can you speak kind of in broad terms about how this has impacted your business? Are you down a certain percentage? Have you had some cost savings on other sides? Can you give the committee just kind of how you've pivoted?
Yes. Essentially, the restaurants have been closed or greatly reduced in business. So that aspect of the business, which was quite small, is essentially gone at this point. We have dropped probably 20% in total sales, but we've had some positives as well. We have less costs because the demand is so high for local food in the area we live in. The waste is very low as well. It would not be uncommon to have a crop, an individual crop, and maybe sell 50 or 80% of that crop. But when you can sell 90+%, 95% of the crop, it's an advantage. We are also getting the retail price for almost everything we sell. So those considerations would make up for the loss in total sales, in total volume sales possibly.
And obviously your business model is built on going directly to consumers, selling directly to their homes and things like that. In your mind, what is the most important policy that the Government of Canada has come up with to help support your business and your model in particular?
Yeah, I think I'm quite unusual when you look at like agriculture in general. The most positive thing I believe that has happened is just the federal income support for people who lost jobs, lost employment. For me, honestly, if my customers have income and have money, they will continue to buy product from me. And I think that essentially is the main benefit I have seen.
I want to talk to you about the local interest, because again, it seems to be bubbling up in the Annapolis Valley. We have a great tradition of people wanting to support local. Have there been any circumstances where people have come up to you and expressed how much they're interested in the local scene and the agricultural support right now?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. My online CSA was, it probably within 2 days of the pandemic hitting, it probably tripled in volume. I had to put a stop on accepting new people because I did not feel I had the production to maintain it. That volume, there's an extensive waiting list actually of people who want to buy food from me that I cannot actually supply at this point. I will be able to supply it as we get into main season. I've had unbelievable comments. I had one gentleman emailed me and said he was about my age, in his 50s. He had never bought local food in his life. He had never cared less about it. And the COVID pandemic made him rethink his life, as he said to me. And I just think it's very interesting. Even if a small percentage of this new interest lasts with us beyond COVID, I think we could see, at least in this area, we could see a lasting benefit of new interest in supporting local food of many types.
No, and I think you're spot on. There's been a deindustrialization of some of our processing capability in the Annapolis Valley, and perhaps there's an opportunity to return some of that, particularly in those niche scenes. I want to be respectful. I want to turn it over to Miss Shanahan. I know she has some questions. Thank you, Mr. Hutton.
Merci beaucoup. J'aimerais tout d'abord
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Madame Lefebvre for her presence here this afternoon. It was pretty much at the last minute, and I do have a question for you. From the time that the pandemic was declared, ever since the beginning of the outbreak, I've received concerned calls from producers, particularly as to what the situation for temporary workers is going to be. So why not share with us some of your experience of the first few days and weeks? And in your opinion, from your perspective, was the response fast enough, efficient enough? I know we're in a crisis situation, but we closed the borders. Did we respond appropriately and adequately? Did we succeed in overcoming the obstacles? Well, at the beginning of the season, it wasn't so bad. Workers were able to arrive with only the minimum of delays. They were late, but not that late. It wasn't a huge issue. But the situation we're dealing with right now is those essential workers that we need for our crops. And on the other end, in Mexico, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get the approval of their government and to get the process underway. So it's a month that we can't make up in 2 days, after all. Thank you, Madame Lefebvre. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but we're very short of time. And thank you to Ms. Shanahan as well. Mr. Perron, 6 minutes. Yes, and welcome once again to the witnesses. Thank you for the precision and clarity of your presentations. Madame Lefebvre, you talk of the $1,500 subsidy for individual per worker, foreign worker, apparently for the quarantine issues. And you said you have to bring some paperwork or proof. I thought it was supposed to be a given, a set sum, standardized. So perhaps if you were to itemize how much time it took to do this and that and prepare the paperwork, you might get some money. Well, maybe, but I've been trying to inquire, and it's absolutely not clear at all what we can claim for. Oh, it's very unfortunate that you may not be getting the $1,500. Well, it was a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. Okay. I appreciated your comment on Agri-Invest, and I'll keep that for future argument purposes because it's for an investment. It's not there to cover operational costs. You can't ask a student who's saving up for an education to empty it all out to pay the rent. So I appreciated I liked your analogy, and I'm going to use it. With your permission, I'll acknowledge the source. Madame Saint-Georges, question on your recommendations and requests. I take a look at what you have here, and these are very, very similar to what's already been requested at press conferences, etc., when the four agricultural major organizations got together. It looks a lot alike. Well, I think we're all hammering on the same nail. We all want to get the same message out there. It's a common concern. So it means that the progress is slow or non-existent. Go ahead. Well, those who are involved in the local markets, I'm there to speak on their behalf. They don't have the economy of scale. They can't qualify often for these major programs, assistance programs. Yes, for processing, of course, that's been dealt with. A specific fund, perhaps, for processors dealing with market loss, and particularly things that are structured to assist smaller enterprises, what we call SMEs. Is there a set sum? Is there a target? Well, during this pandemic, a lot of market sites, for example, bars, restaurants, bistros, they're closed. What can you do? There's no point of sale. So it's a loss. They're not exactly going to come to our farm gate to stock up. We have to have some compensation for the loss of those markets. And if it's in stall mode for quite a period of time, perhaps they won't be able to get back into work. Well, if it goes beyond 2 or 3 months, we're already seeing a lot of people, wave the white flag and give up. And how do we compare with the assistance that's being made available to the American markets? Because we'll be back in competition with these people once this pandemic is over. Well, we have to keep an eye out on the horizon. We have to maintain our competitivity. We want to incite and encourage our producers to produce and to be active in Canadian markets and international market. How can we maintain this enthusiasm for local purchases, local product? Well, the slogan used to be "Think global, act local." I think that we can spin that on its head. But what we want is to encourage, consumption of product from home, if you will, and encourage our local businesses and our local people. So when we say local purchase, local market, and would encourage these initiatives that highlight and, showcase our local production. Just a few moments on a fund for the promotion of Canadian goods in the export markets. Well, we do have sectors that are export-oriented, but today I'm looking at local market and local marketing because these people are often overlooked. Okay, I'll leave the rest of my time to Mr. Champoux. Thank you, Yves. Madame Saint-Georges, I'd like to continue with you. You mentioned online boutiques, if you will, online sales, which are exploring quite radically at this point. It could be a good approach for the future. What's being done to encourage this kind of initiative, online sales? Well, the Dubuc plan was announced in Quebec, the blue basket, they call it, the panier bleu. And when we talk about agro-food, we have to talk about food. There's a bit of a difference between buying a piece of furniture or buying an agricultural product, which is a consumable, a perishable, and initiatives are there. I mean, it's quite easy. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good work going on in Quebec. There could be some labeling issues that might be, I don't know, improved, a product of Canada, proudly Canadian, something like this. Thank you, Mr. Champoux, Mr. Perron. Mr. McGregor, you have 6 minutes. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Maybe I'll continue my questioning with Ms. St. George, and just on the theme of internet access in rural areas and how we are going to continue making use of this incredible resource to help local farmers. I'm just wondering if you can maybe just expand, how much of a disadvantage does it put a local farmer when they don't have the reliable access to that broadband network? I mean, I guess they're not fully able to make use of the most up-to-date websites, et cetera, to really build a functioning place for their customers. The government has a plan in place to expand broadband to rural Canada, 100% coverage by the year 2030. Can you maybe just comment on that timeline as well?
OK. Ben, c'est sûr que c'est intéressant de voir qu'on...
Well, obviously we're addressing the issue. At the moment, I think at the time of the outbreak and everybody was on watching TV, they could see an explosion in people watching things online, any platform, no matter whether it's any of the social media, all of the social media. But we don't have access to a lot of this technology. So we're already got a handicap compared to people who have access in major centers, for example. So the opportunity is there. The need is there. Let's not wait for another crisis to get us connected, With the various programs that are available today, Shopify, for example, they can build you a website functional with, sales, deliveries, distribution, but you have to have the internet, you have to have broadband. So, fax is a dead technology. It's gone.
The Minister of Rural Economic Development, the Honourable Mariam Monsef, she recently was quoted in the media as saying that she would support the idea of internet access becoming a public utility. Is that something that you could get behind as well?
Je peux pas me prononcer aujourd'hui.
Well, I don't think I can express an opinion today. I have had no feedback or anything. I'd have to talk to the membership and find out where they stand on it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your comments. Mr. Hutton, I'd like to turn to you if I can. I really appreciate your comments on how you've taken advantage of online marketing and just how you're barely able to keep up. In my own community out over here on Vancouver Island, we also have an online marketplace that allows farmers to really make available online what products they have in season. And so people can order those, and the farmers really like it because they only need to harvest as much as people need. So they're able to keep their vegetables in the ground longer, and they can really it gives them a little bit more leeway in seeing ahead what the demand is like. Can you just maybe tell the committee, what was it like in your own experience in transitioning to online marketing and sales? Maybe some of the difficulties and roadblocks you have, and is this something maybe that the government needs to really identify and offer support to other farms to really take advantage of accessing that local market, building community resiliency, et cetera?
It's an interesting thing. So what I have online is essentially a significant sized CSA. So what this means is it's not like an online platform where people can choose what they want to buy. It's kind of very advantageous to me. Everyone has to prepay for the food they are going to eat this season. So cash flow is not an issue for me. Mm-hmm. And I choose what my customers eat. So essentially, each week they get a box of food, which I put an economic value on, and they eat the food I give them, and they pay for it before they get the food. So obviously, if I could move all of my product that way, that would be great. I think that is limited. So what I'm trying to do is I'm almost finished with it now. I have a online platform built which will be customized, and people can go online and choose what they would like. I just have not quite finished loading the data on it, but I will in the next couple of weeks. I haven't had to do that because I have not had the production yet this season to need that, but that is where I'm going.
Yes, I've been a member of a CSA before, and one thing I like about it is that it teaches you to make new recipes out of vegetables you may not have picked yourself, and so it widens your repertoire, if you will. And it's a fantastic model. I think you see some farms in my area also using both models, like where the farmer will pick what's in season and you'll get a mixed bag, and then others where you can pick and choose from different farms the products that you want. But you know, have you spoken to any other farms about their ventures in this, and is it something they might need help, like as we start looking at the transition towards recovery? Is there training that people might need? Is there anything the government can help in to help facilitate this kind of a transition to the online marketplace to service local communities' needs?
I suspect the bulk of people will need.
Okay, that's French.
I suspect most people will need assistance. I'm actually a bit lucky. Two of my brothers are computer programmers and software developers, and so I have a little bit of an advantage. So they have built me the customized online platform that I need. I do think I have a bit of a background in operating a small CSA, so the transition was not as difficult for me as it could have been. It is costly.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and thank you, Mr. McGregor. And this is all the time we have for this panel. I really would like to thank l'Union des producteurs agricoles, Madame Catherine Saint-Georges, aussi les maraîchers L&L incorporés, Madame Catherine Lefebvre, et Hutton Family Farm, Ted Hutton. So I really want to thank you for taking part in today's our committee meeting today. So thank you so much. So now we have a little bit of it. Well, I believe Mr. Barlow would have a motion that he would like to put on the floor. So Mr. Barlow, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I did circulate these motions the other day, but I didn't feel we had the time on Wednesday to address them. And we did speak, the clerk had mentioned some concerns with the wording on a couple of those motions. So we have worked with the clerk to improve the wording of those motions to make them more in line with what he was looking for. And I have spoken to Francis, and I believe my colleague has spoken with Mr. Perron as well. And sorry, Alistair, I wasn't able to get a hold of you on Wednesday because you were locked out of your office. But hopefully this is okay with what we're doing. So I have 4 motions here. And I can read them out, but everybody may have them in front of them. What would you prefer, Mr. Chair, just to go through them one at a time?
I imagine, yeah. Let's go through one at a time, and yeah, everybody's got a copy of it, but let's go through one at a time so that it's clear what you want.
Perfect. I'll start with number 1, Mr. Chair. That given the Standing Committee of Agriculture and Agri-Food's letter to the Standing Committee on International Trade on February 25th, 2020, regarding our study of Bill C-4, an act to implement the agreement between Canada, the United States of America, and the United Mexican States, CUSMA, in which we outline concerns about the impact of the Canadian dairy industry of implementing CUSMA before August 1st, 2020, and said it has been made public that the implementation date will now proceed on July 1st, 2020. The committee requests all briefing notes, memorandums, emails, and documents related to the CUSMA's implementation date and coming into force be tabled by July 1st, 2020, and that departments tasked with gathering and releasing the following documents do their assessment and vetting as would be done through the Access to Information process.
So you heard the motion. Any questions, discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Blois.
For my own understanding on this, obviously there's 4 different motions, all of different natures. As a committee, and maybe this is a question for the clerk, are we expected to vote as an aggregate in terms of voting for all 4 of these at one time? Are we voting on them each individually? Or what are the circumstances just before we move forward?
Yeah, just one at a time, Cody. They're individual motions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. Clerk, can I just get ask if there's anyone opposing the motion? Would that be good enough for the vote?
Mr. Chair, if I could, just
Go ahead, Mr. Blois.
Maybe just as a point of discussion for all the members on this committee, obviously understand the nature of what Mr. Barlow is putting forward. I'm curious as to whether or not the opposition and the other members of this committee have had any conversations with the dairy industry themselves to see whether or not they feel this motion is helpful to them, or whether or not it might compromise them in any way, or if this is actually in the interest. Because of course we're all members of Parliament. We have the Liberals, Conservatives, Bloc, NDP, but at the end of the day, we're all here to serve Canadians and try to work in the best interest of agriculture. And I'm going to put it out to discussion to see whether or not the opposition has had any conversations with the dairy industry on this point.
Mr. Barlow, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll make one quick comment, and maybe Mr. Lehoux would want to comment as well. I understand your point, Cody, but we're asking for information that went into the decision to implement this on July 1st. I think that's should be public knowledge. We shouldn't be hiding, and maybe that's not the best word, but we should be transparent on how this decision was made. There were assurances, let's say, that the implementation date would be August 1st. It is now July 1st. That is a significant impact on the dairy industry. And I don't think we should be asking stakeholders permission to ask for information that we think is prudent to our jobs as members of Parliament. That would be my comment, but maybe Mr. Lehoux would have further insights.
Vous avez quelque chose, Monsieur Lehoux?
Oui. Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Chair, yes. Am I coming through? Yes, go ahead. Yes, I'd like to add a few comments to what Mr. Blois has said. To have discussed with the industry, yes, it would have an impact. They were in the same frame of mind as we, that this would happen on the 1st of August. So they have a lot of doubts and a lot of questions. It will have quite an impact and consequences for them. There might be some businesses that are shut down. There's only 1 month of difference, but that 1 month is very, very important in the processing sector. And by rebound, of course, there'll be an effect on producers in the months to come. Any other comments? If I can come in on that, Mr. Chair, go ahead, Mr. Perron. Yes, I've also received, Monsieur Lehoux also, I'm sure. I've been very active to try to make sure that this was going to come into effect on the 1st of August or even later. I've had a lot of contact with the sector, dairy sector, up until quite recently. And people want to know, they want to know, but it really doesn't matter because we can't change the decision. It's going to happen at those dates. So perhaps we can, not expend too much energy on that, and that the committee recall that there was a commitment on that. The commitment was not respected. That has to be on the record. And we have to protect our commitments. We have to protect our supply management systems in law. And I don't think it's necessary to consult once again with the industry. Thank you. Any other comments?
Monsieur le Président.
Go ahead,
yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on that. I've also been in touch with the dairy sector about this information, and I think our job as a committee, given that we were led to believe, both the International Trade Committee and this committee were led to believe that the government understood the significance of the dairy year starting August 1st. I believe, as Mr. Barlow said, it's the job of the opposition. We may not be able to change the date, and it may be set in stone, as Monsieur Perron said. However, I would like to know the reasoning why this decision was ultimately made. And when I look at the wording of the motion, I'm just wondering, like, if this request were to go through, we would probably have several bankers' boxes of documents dumped on the committee. The ultimate decision was made at quite a high level, so probably assistant deputy minister and up. And if the committee wants to look at amending it maybe slightly, maybe that's where we're trying to try and get the actual documentation from, is ADM and up to the ministerial level. Because the bureaucrats that are working with the dairy farmers right now, they're not the ones who made the decision. They have a great working relationship with the dairy farmers, but ultimately what we're interested in is the why. Why was this decision made for July 1st rather than August 1st? So I think it's an appropriate avenue to be looking at, because I don't think to date we've really gotten a clear answer on why one date was picked over the other.
Mr. Chair, I guess from my perspective, and I'll let any other members opine on this as well, my concern, of course, is around the premise that there could be information here that is prejudicial against the dairy industry. I understand the opposition's desire to want to push and understand about the implementation date and things like that. They have all that opportunity in the House of Commons, in the committees that we've allowed. But, in the conversations, I think many in the dairy industry want to be able to move on from this, and this is just something that perhaps could continue to drag on, and I think we need to look at what comes next after this. And so I don't know if this motion actually does anything to actually benefit the dairy industry.
Thank you,
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Boyd. Allez-y, Monsieur Lehoux.
Mr. Lehoux, yes? Okay, go ahead, sir. Well, thank you very much, Chair. Quite to the contrary, I think that I share some of the perspectives of my colleague, Mr. Perron, but it's probably too late to do anything about it. That's true. But if we don't want to repeat the errors, and if we want to protect our processors and our producers, we have to find out why it happened and how it happened, if there was a mistake made or whatever, so that we don't repeat it. And if we have to disclose certain information, and if there's some issues that are not disclosable for privacy or ethical concerns, people will call us back to order on that issue. But I think it's very important that if we try to put as much light on this issue as possible. I find it very disappointing that we should just let it go and say, well, it won't happen again. But we have to know that it won't happen again. Thank you.
At this stage, if you don't mind, there's a raise hand option at the right-hand bottom of your the list. So if you want to use that, it'll be a lot easier for me to see who had their hands raised first. And okay, so I look at the raised hand, and Mr. McGuire, you have your hand raised. So go ahead, Mr. McGuire.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and just in relation to the issue of the dairy industry and their concerns, and whether they feel that there was anything there, I don't think they would have put the press release out. They did if they had any concerns. So they've already had concerns about those particular dates. So I think that's a moot point at this point.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Mr. Boyd?
Chair, yeah, Mr. Chair, I want to, if Mr. Barlow could repeat his motion, I had some concerns and was willing to propose an amendment in terms of the information that's available. Of course, we're dealing with cabinet confidences, information that it could be commercially sensitive to our producers as it relates to our trade relationships and our relationships with agricultural producers. So can I hear it from one more time to Barlow to make sure, Mr. Barlow, to make sure that is included. And again, I'm someone coming from riding in Nova Scotia in King's Hants that knows the importance of the dairy industry, but I don't know if this motion in spirit does anything to help support it or change the fact, other than just perhaps information for the opposition, which they can actually ask in the House of Commons and get the same answers.
Mr. Barlow, would you care to read your motion there again?
Yeah, maybe I can alleviate Mr. Boyce's concern. And that's where Mr. Drouin and I had the conversation over the last couple of days to add that last line. The department's tasked with gathering and releasing the following documents, do their assessment and vetting as would be done through an access to information request. or processed. So those issues that Mr. Blois is worried about. Now, and Mr. Blois, remember, Parliament is not sitting. So many of the tools that we would have to get this information, we do not have right now. So we are trying to find another way to get this information. And it's interesting you're concerned about the dairy industry now.
They can vote for.
This month difference is very significant, and I think it behooves us as parliamentarians to find out why that decision was made. I can still read it off if you want, but just to Mr. Blois's concern, as Francis and I have had this conversation, or Mr. Drouin and I have had this conversation over the last couple of days, adding that line in there at the end of the motion was to address exactly that.
Mr. Boyce, are you okay with that, or do you want to?
Yeah. No, that helps clarify. Again, my concern extends to the fact that yes, we still have tools available for members of the opposition to ask these questions. I would be interested to know
we don't have order paper questions. We don't have these things, Mr. Blois, right now. This, don't say that we have tools, because we don't. Thanks to the decision that you guys made, we're having to find different ways to get information.
Well, I think the idea of bringing everyone together in 338 is inappropriate. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Please address and raise your hand if you want to speak. It'll be a lot simpler. Any other comments? Mr. McGregor.
So yes, to John's comment, the House of Commons is not sitting, but we expressly in the super motion that is now governing how we're sitting until September 1st, we inserted a provision in there that gives the committees that are meeting right now the ability to request the production of papers. And so that is the tool that we created, to Mr. Blois's point. Asking a question, you sometimes don't get the level of detail that you're requesting that's present in a document. And so that's why the provision in the super motion passed by the House of Commons now gives standing committees to order the production of papers. And this is an exercise that committees can use. And so I think it's entirely appropriate to use this avenue, because we don't have that avenue in the House, but committees do. And so this is a power that we're exercising through this motion, to Mr. Barlow's point.
And again, Mr. Chair, I guess my apologies. I should have raised my hand in the chat. So my apologies, Mr. Chair. I look at the rest of the motions that Mr. Barlow's put forth, and I think they're great. I have no problem with them in terms of that information. I worry about the fact that this agreement has gone through and what type of relationship it could place our country with other trading partners, including our dairy sector. So I've made my comment, and I appreciate everyone else's thoughts as well.
Thank you, Mr. Blois. Seeing no hands raised, I would like to ask the clerk to get a recorded vote on Mr. Barlow's motion.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors,
Thank you. Would you please indicate with a yes or a no if we are in favor of the motion? Madame Bessette? No.
Madame Shanahan?
No.
Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. Lewis? Are you there? The clerk calling Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Lewis, you're okay. Try it again, Mr. Lewis.
My apologies. No.
No. Okay. Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Monsieur Lehoux?
Monsieur Lehoux, but
oui.
Okay.
Oui. Mr. Maguire?
Can you unmute your?
Yes.
Mr. Soroka?
Yes.
Monsieur Perron?
No.
Mr. McGregor?
Yes.
Okay. So, if I'm not mistaken, in favor 6 and in disfavor 5.
Could you repeat that?
Sorry. It's the contrary. Yes. In favor 5 and in disfavor 6.
Okay, so motion defeated. I will now pass to your second motion, Mr. Barlow.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Number two, that given the Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food's written response to Mr. Philip Lawrence's question on the cost of the carbon tax to the agriculture industry, in which their analysis and estimates do not reflect the federal backstop, the committee requests all reports, briefing notes, memorandums, emails, and documents related to the federal carbon tax and its cost, directly or indirectly, to the agriculture industry be tabled before August 1st, 2020, and that departments tasked with gathering and releasing the following documents do their assessment and vetting as would be done through the Access of Information process.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Any discussion? I don't see any hand.
J'aurais une proposition d'amendement, Monsieur le Président.
I'd like to propose an amendment, sir. Well, that this would be provided by province, a breakdown by province. Any discussion on the amendment?
My hand, that sounds reasonable to me in terms of trying to break that down by province, certainly if that information is available. So we'll be supporting Mr. Perron.
Thank you, Mr. Blois. I'm going to have to give you extra homework for that. So you know, I'm just kidding. So, Monsieur, est-ce qu'il y a de la discussion? Sorry. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? So I don't see no hand raised. So at this stage, would we want a recorded vote on the amendment, Monsieur le greffier? Est-ce qu'on peut faire un vote? Est-ce qu'on a besoin d'un vote?
Mr. Clerk, do we need to have a recorded vote for the amendment? Well, it's safer that way.
Oui, c'est bon.
Mr. Blois?
Yes.
Madame Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Monsieur Lehoux?
Oui.
Mr. Maguire?
Yes.
Mr. Soroka?
Yes.
Monsieur Perron?
Oui.
And Mr. McGregor?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, in favor 11 and against 0.
So motion accepted. The amendment. Now we have to vote on the main motion. So, Monsieur le greffier, for the main motion.
Madame Bessette?
Oui.
Mr. Blois?
Yes.
Madame Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Monsieur Lehoux?
Oui.
Mr. Maguire?
Yes.
Mr. Soroka?
Yes.
Monsieur Perron?
Oui.
And Mr. McGregor?
Yes.
Donc, pour 11, contre 0.
Thank you.
11 in favor, 0 people opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Greffier. So motion passed. And now for your third motion, Mr. Barlow.
Thanks, everyone. I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible, and I appreciate your patience. That the committee order the Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food to produce all documents with respect to business risk management funding with details on the following: the total number of Agri-Invest accounts registered and the percentage that are deposited into and withdrawn from annually, the total amount of dollars in Agri-Invest accounts at the high point in the year and the low point of the year for the past 10 years and broken down by province, the number of Agri-Invest accounts that are currently at 0 and currently below $10,000, the number of Agri-Invest accounts per year that were fully withdrawn to $0 as well as drawn below $10,000 for the last 10 years, the number of Agri-Invest accounts over $50,000, over $75,000, and over $100,000. The percentage of Agri-Invest accounts currently sitting above 50% of the maximum amount allowed to be held in the account, as well as 75% broken down by sector. The number of open Agri-Invest accounts by sector, and the average account balances within each of those sectors for the last 10 years,
Yes.
and broken down by province. And the documents be submitted to the committee in both official languages by July 1st, 2020, and departments tasked with gathering and releasing the following documents do their assessment and vetting as would be done through the access to information process.
So you've heard the motion. Any questions, any discussions on the motion? I don't see any hand raised. So, Monsieur Le Greffier, est-ce qu'on peut faire un vote enregistré?
Another recorded vote? Yes, thank you. Let's go.
Mr. Blois?
Yes.
Madame Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
I can't hear you, sir, Mr. Clerk, but if it's me, yes.
Yes. Good. Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Monsieur Lehoux?
Wait.
Mr. Maguire?
Yes.
Mr. Soroka?
Yes.
Monsieur Perron?
Oui.
And Mr. McGregor?
Yes.
Donc, Monsieur le Président, en faveur 11.
In favor 11, against 0.
Monsieur Le Greffier, alors.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. It's carried.
So, Mr. Barlow, you have another one more, I believe.
Yeah, thanks everybody, your troopers. That the committee order the Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food to produce all documents with respect to the government's closure of the CFIA district office in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, prior to the end of October 2020, with details on the following. A, job losses resulting from the closure. B, economic impact of the closure on Northern Alberta and Saskatchewan. C, impact on current or future related research projects. D, expected cost savings from the closure. E, the closure's absence from the CFIA's 2020-2021 department plan. F, other CFIA office closures expected over the next 5 years. And G, CFIA offices closed since October 2015. And the documents be submitted to the committee in both official languages by July 1st, 2020. And the departments tasked with gathering and releasing the following documents do their assessment and vetting as would be done through the access to information process.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. You've all heard the motion. Any comments, discussions on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, Monsieur Le Greffier, est-ce que vous voulez procéder au vote?
Shall we proceed with the vote? Yes, Madame Bessette.
Oui.
Mr. Blois?
Yes.
Madame Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis? Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Monsieur Lehoux?
Wait.
Mr. Maguire?
Yes.
Mr. Soroka?
Yes.
Monsieur Perron?
Oui.
Et finalement, Monsieur McGregor?
Yes.
Donc, Monsieur le Président, yeas 11, nays 0.
Merci, Monsieur le Greffier. Alors, merci, Monsieur le Greffier. Alors,
thank you, Clerk. The motion is adopted. Carried.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. If I can indulge just for a few more minutes on just for next week's business. So the minister, first of all, has agreed to appear before the committee on supplementary estimate A at our next scheduled meeting on Wednesday, June 10th. And following that, we'll move back into our BRM study. Also, we need to take some time, and I was looking at next Friday, taking an hour. We need to provide instruction on to the analysts as to what to include within the letter on BRM the committee wishes to draft. So, because understanding that the deadline to want to submit before July 3rd. And I believe that is, we have to also discuss other matters such as the extension and the scheduling. So that is all I have, unless there's any questions. So yeah, I guess the actual formatting of the letter. So if you want to kind of think that over, how we would kind of draft that and the whole format to give instruction to the analyst. If what? Maybe Monsieur Corentin. Monsieur Corentin, est-ce que vous avez besoin de la lettre des instructions aujourd'hui?
Do you need instructions today? Well, for the instructions on the content, we can wait until we have a meeting in camera. But we have a question as if do you want any direction in particular for the format? For example, generally the letters are no longer than 2 or 3 pages. We raise the specific highlights of what we heard in testimony, and we can do that quite quickly. If you want us to add a summary or a recap of the evidence brought forward, and if you need recommendations, that would take a little extra time. Anyone have any comments on the type of format we wish to structure for this letter, rather? Well, what kind of format, Mr. Chair? Yes, Mr. Caronte. If you'd like an example, the letter that was produced for the United States agreement, 2-3 pages, and we can get that underway in no time, very quickly. Some committees have tried other formats, other versions, and it could take a little bit more time. So I don't know if there was any desire to proceed one way or another. Well, I'm not too concerned about the format. I'm concerned about the content. And I think if we're concise and precise, and we have a consensus, we should be able to say a lot in 2 or 3 pages or 4. Mr. Barlow.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm not too concerned with the format either. I think it's the content as well. Just a summary of what we've heard from witnesses, which I think is fairly consistent with their position on the impact COVID has had on their operations, the assistance that they're looking for, positions on business risk management. Maybe break it down to 4 or 5 specific topics, which I think would be fairly easy, and just a summary of the testimony we've had. I'm not too worried about the format necessarily, but just I think it just has to be an executive summary, let's say, of what we've heard thus far, if that makes sense.
Alors, c'est correct, Monsieur Corentin?
Is that agreeable to you, Mr. Corentin? Is that clear? Yes, quite clear. Thank you. But just a minor point, if I may. No, please, go ahead. Did I get the dates right for the meetings for the content? Friday next. Would that be too late, in your opinion? Well, it is, because the number of meetings that we have left, we would have to look at it immediately on the first meeting of the following week. Well, if the vice chairs agree, we can do a bit of an informal meeting to try to provide the required information to the analysts so that they can prepare the letter. If it's a matter of time, I can communicate with you next week, in fact. Well, the only constraint on that is the translation. Yes. So perhaps if we were to extend the sitting of our next one, well, it's with the minister. We can perhaps, that's next Wednesday, I believe, yes? We could lengthen the lengthen the meeting by about 30 minutes or so, perhaps. It's just a suggestion. If everyone agrees, and the support team, of course, is there as well, they generally need to be advised, if not consulted. I'm sorry, but Mr. Clerk, yes, go ahead, Mr. Clerk. I'm not sure that given the current context, and it's the whips who decide the length of the sittings. They can extend by 30 minutes or 1 hour on the next meeting on Wednesday. But I don't know if you've noticed that in the time slots proposed by the whips, there are some periods that are reserved for in-camera meetings for certain committees, or an extra meeting in one of those slots, perhaps. One-time slot, 9 till 1300 on Thursday, and then the 10th from 11 till 12 noon. We could get extra time there.
With our whip, and apparently we could extend. Excuse me. So apparently we could extend by 30 minutes if we can get the support team. But our whip has just informed us, and I assume they've been communicating with the other whip. So we'll plan for that. If there's an issue, we'll find another way. But again, it's just a matter of time, so we can give enough time to the analysts to be able to submit that letter. Where it's going to be pertinent. I see two hands. Est-ce que Monsieur Blois,
I'll just be very quick. I think we've all had a long day here. Just simply support what Mr. Barlow said. I would suggest that just a meeting of the vice chairs and like almost an informal subcommittee to discuss this and to give some direction and certainly moving that forward. To the clerk, the analyst rather, I would just make sure that we include some of the things we've heard from the local benefits in terms of how there's been a big push for local and that it's been a very mixed bag depending on commodity. But those are things we can talk about offline and with the vice chairs.
So just to make sure, Mr. Blois, we would have to take that information and vote it on, have a vote on it to make it official, I guess, at the Wednesday's meeting. But it would probably save some time. That's a thought. Monsieur Perron.
Mr. Perron. Well, we could also hold a subcommittee with the VPs, and we wouldn't have to be using interpretation or have any concerns about it, and use those in-camera type slots that are available. Because an informal meeting is just that. It's an informal, complicates things. So I don't like to put a stick in the spokes, but interpretation, I need it. So thank you.
On ne vous entend pas, Monsieur le Président.
Can't hear you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. Let's try to find an extra 30 minutes, as much as no more than 30 minutes on our next meeting, at our next meeting, because the interpretation, all the support services will be there, and anything more, and we have to have it approved at a higher level, if you will. I'll try to do the best I can, and I'll communicate with the whips, and let's assume that we'll succeed. If you all agree, we'll just add 30 minutes to our next meeting. Well, 30 minutes, how are we going to cut the witnesses? Are we going to cut them, or? Well, I think just, unless you want to shorten the presentations of witnesses, I was thinking add 30 minutes. If the consensus is to reduce the amount of time that we hear from anybody testifying and that accompany the minister, of course, we can do that too. Do you prefer to add 30 minutes or cut into the presentations or the questions following the presentations? Well, let's just add 30 minutes, Mr. Chair. Okay, we'll add 30 minutes to our next meeting.
Really appreciate everybody staying longer, especially the team that supports this committee. I really apologize. Friday. So really thank you, and I wish all of you a fantastic weekend. Alors, au revoir tout le monde. On se revoit mercredi. Alors, merci.
Goodbye, one and all, and we'll see each other next Wednesday. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Bye, all.